back to part 2 of the 4th of July episode of Good Morning Trumptopia. I'm your host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. That wild, crazy song you're listening to is Lion's Haven by Art of Escapism. Available on freemusicarchive.org, a resource for podcasters, video makers, sound designers, etc. This podcast series is produced by the entirely imaginary C-Tech Studios production company. Business plan that's locked up in my head, waiting for some investors to roll up and say, yes, let's make this happen nationally. Boom. Keeping my fingers crossed on that one. Let's get started. Thanks for the music. Art of Escapism. Well, I'm happy and excited to be celebrating the 4th of July with the 4 of you, or 3 of you, that are listening to my podcast today. I'm actually quite excited. We hit a first this week. We had our first... I'm speaking like a politician. Using the royal we. I myself experienced this for the first time in regards to the show. Had a live listener on the Sprecher platform. That changed things up for me because I'm new to this and I've only been doing this sort of on again, off again, on again, around other things in my life, kind of for fun, and to see if it could evolve into something sustainable. Of course, we've only just begun. I have only just begun. This project has only just begun. But it was quite awesome to have a live audience member there asking questions in the little chat box, which every other time I've ever broadcast or recorded, I guess I say for those who aren't aware, I record, if you're listening to this on YouTube, I record using a platform called Sprecher.com. I believe it's a German company. Or at least they use the German word for speaking or speaker. And they've got an integrated chat interface here in their recording studio. And it very tauntingly says, feels lonely in here. Be the first to send a message. I'm sure that's kind of aimed at potential audience members that might wander into any given podcast's chat room. So many thanks and much love and shout out to that first listener. I believe their screen name was, I can't remember right now, something about Oz. There was a reference to Oz in the screen name. And I think her name is Rachel, or something with an R. A woman's name with an R, right? I should have double-checked, right, before I started talking about it. So that was fun. And for anybody tuning in to catch this, not live, obviously, because there's no one in the chat room, but on YouTube or in the archives on Sprecher. And if you're considering yourself a fan, please do follow the show or shows on Sprecher, because there's a fun thing that happens when a show reaches 100 followers, and that's that Sprecher unlocks this thing where you can submit your your show to be included on the iHeartRadio app, which, at least in California at any rate, seems to be one of the most popular radio and podcast sort of all together in one app sort of app. And that's a kind of midterm goal. I'd love to try to reach that before the end of the year. Okay, so what was I talking about in my previous segment? We were rambling on about fun facts about this holiday, today's holiday, and I was, sprinkling it with all kinds of commentary. I doubt anybody who's listened to more than 3 episodes would be surprised if I declared myself anti-statist. I think statism... Let me clarify. I'm anti-ism at large, writ all. So whatever ism you can think of, stateism, even Buddhism, I think, even though I begrudgingly use that word to help people go, oh, okay, I get what I think, I have an idea of what he means in terms of his spiritual identity, but I'm not a Buddhist. I don't belong to any of the Buddhism isms officially. Like, I haven't signed up. You know what groups I actually officially belong to? It's quite funny. And I don't mean to disparage Buddhism in any particular school of Buddhism. I don't mean to disparage any of the human individuals bound up with an identity to a particular kind of ism, whatever that ism might be. Whether it's republicanism or democratism. A lot of things are isms, even though we don't overtly call them name of thing with ism at the end. Let's be clear about that. Right. I don't mean to disparage any of those people, because they're human beings. Like I was saying before, I support the people that are the troops. I do not support the agenda that their employers / owners are, conducting. I'm fed up. I'm 41 years old, and I'm fed up of watching young men and women march off to kill and be killed. And I'm sick and tired of, as much as I love this place, and I love it as I bestow America with a lot of altruism, of my altruism on it. I project onto it, I suppose. We all do, I imagine. In a way, that's sort of how statism works. I just project my altruism outside of a statist paradigm, I suppose. It gets tricky, though, right? Because what would we do if we had no state? I'm not an anarchist either, which confuses a lot of people and offends anarchists, and seemingly offends Democrats too. It offends everybody left and right, because what I'm, and others, I'm not the only one, I'm not the first by any means. But where some of us stand, we sort of go, wouldn't life be groovier, awesomer, more happy, more relaxed, more peaceful and peace-giving and peace-living? Words that I think are missing from our vocabulary. If we radically liberated ourselves from all the ideology that operates in conjunction with our organizational efforts to, produce food and products that are useful to other human beings and a sense of community. Because, for example, there's the people busy arguing about who to vote for. That's an interesting divide and conquer technique, in my opinion. Like I was saying in the previous episode, or in the previous segment of this episode, in part 1. The founding fathers were not fond of political parties. And I don't think that they intended for the rise of political parties into all areas of government to the point that partisanship and bipartisanship were everyday words. Because they didn't want anything partisan in the government. They wanted it to be of the people, by the people, for the people, which means it was more of a functionary, like the president and the jobs themselves of government weren't meant to be, in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong about this, maybe I'm pushing this too far, but they weren't meant to be political. Not in the way we use politicized political politics today, and the way it's used in the media. Oh, what a bunch of politics. I don't like his or her politics. This has been politicized. I don't think that the founding fathers are probably sick and tired and fed up to here with the politicization of this and that. Right? That was sort of... Because how are we free in this country formerly known as America, now known as Trumptopia, soon to be declared Trumptopia? Let's put it that way. I think I'm ahead of the curve. I'm predicting it. How can we be free if we are divided amongst ourselves and arguing and fighting with each other because of the influence of thought constructs that don't exist in nature, but are attached to the identities of being part of this or that political affiliation, and then the spectrum of divisive lines that emerges from that? Every 25, 30 some odd years, portions of the American electorate wake up to the nonsense and go, wait a minute. If we go back and revisit some of the deeper, in a deeper exploration of some of the philosophical statements made outside of the official documents by the founding fathers in reference to the official documents or to the notion of the experiment that they were beginning, then that and how we operate today do not link up. They are not holding hands. There's a lot of things that conflict. One of the big ones, because we're so partisan-minded today amongst those who participate in civic duty, there's, of course, the massive and ever-growing portion of the population that just either ignore it without forming an opinion, who hate it and therefore choose to abstain, etc. The non-voters, the non-voting bloc. They're the real silent majority. They're not Nixon's silent majority, and they are not Trump's silent majority. Let's be really, really clear on that. And they're not really silent. They just don't get any... There aren't any talking heads that represent the non-voters on the media. And I think that's the entree to being a silent anything. A silent plurality, which is a valid sort of slice of demographics that we should honor a little bit more, I think, in our thinking. Because while it might not be the overt majority, it is a vast... it is a vast and widespread plurality. That's the right word to use there, of everyone throughout the society, right? Hasn't quite reached majority, so technically a minority. But in America, we don't like second and third place at all. You're a loser if you come in second place. You lost. You're not a... Whereas in other forms of democracy, those who come in second place and in third place are then chastised for the things that lost them the vote, and then invited to collaborate and make concessions and participate in a unity, coalition kind of style of governing. Would love it if we had that here. But America, Trumptopia is a result of the history of America. We weren't invaded by Trump, although he technically is of foreign stock. He's German. He's German-American. He's not American-American, right? How does that work? Who's really American-American? Well, really, quite fucking 100% real, hardcore fucking fact, only the Native Americans. And we don't like them either, do we? Here in Trump's America. In America as it becomes Trumptopia. We don't like others. We only want real Americans. But the real Americans are really fucking fake Americans. Talk about some fucking fake news right there, motherfuckers. Pardon my language. I want to apologize to you. More urgently for my repeated use of because I loathe it, and it makes me sound like I'm not good at what I'm doing. You know, you go to a good improv show, and you forgive the players who say a lot. But if you're going to a top tier, team, they don't say a lot. They don't, because they're better than that. And I'm better than that, and I've been saying a lot, so I apologize to you, my dear audience. I will never apologize for using curse words, because that, as long as I'm not using hate behind them, right? That's the key ingredient to them being quote-unquote adult language being protectable by free speech. When I say, fuck you, motherfuckers, I don't mean it in like, I'm going to punch you in the face kind of way. I mean it in a, hey, check yourself. I'm suggesting maybe your thinking's way wrong. And I mean it to be, it's blunt love, it's tough love, and it's not, I never speak, I try not to use never also. Never say never. I try not to speak from a place of hate. And I try to recognize and acknowledge if I'm speaking from a place of frustration or anger, because those are the first stepping stones towards hate. And the last thing I want to be accused of, and I don't want to be lumped in with a bunch of other celebrity media types, I would not want to build my fame on being someone who rattles cages and offends people. I mean, I'm going to offend people because what I have to say is going to offend a lot of statists and consumerists, and there's a lot of isms out there that don't want you to hear the kinds of things that I talk about. Not because I'm special or I'm the first or important, but because I've done my research and I've done my thinking and I've done my soul searching and I've done my listening to others and sharing with others about things. And I, as a patriotic, hyphenated, I couldn't pronounce that word for a hot second there. My mouth was like, where are you going? I'm a hyphenated American. I'm a first-generation Mexican-American. Knock on wood, should I ever make children? Don't really want to, but obviously if I did, I'd be the kind of loving acceptance type. Let the woman in the situation make the ultimate decision about whether to keep it or not, after some really thoughtful consideration about our life context, our ability as parents, and how much money we're going to be able to afford to raise a child. I'm a holistic person, and ultimately I guess I'm saying that my opinion is so nuanced that I confuse people. Like, I'm pro-choice, but I am personally never going to vote for an abortion. I'm going to vote for, what do you want? Woman in my life. I don't currently have officially one. I've met somebody. But that's neither here nor there. You see what I'm saying? And in our culture and where we're going, the trajectory of Trumptopia, the reason I've coined the term, I really want to take credit for that, not from a grandiose, grandstanding point of view, but if it goes viral, it really should be me that gets famous, because, I deserve a break. I want to be famous too. It's the American dream. To be famous, make a lot of money, not because money's the goal, but because money is the best tool. It's the loudest megaphone. It's tragically and unfortunately and immorally, it's the loudest vote. And if I became nouveau riche overnight, as they call it, which really takes like 30 years. I mean, I think I'm on great pace. I'm 41, and I started being a weirdo that hoped and planned and schemed to become an entertainment mogul with a twist, with a meaningful. I started trying to figure out how to do that at the age of 9. I haven't gone the usual route. I'll give you that. I got a lot of friends. Not that I'm bragging, because they're not really close friends anymore. I got a lot of people, acquaintances that I knew in school that are on TV and stuff, and I pray for them in their careers, and I hope that they remain humble through it all and enjoy the ride and make the most of whatever they make. But since a very young age, I've had a really weird agenda, which is I think that I can both entertain the world, because I just seem drawn to that. It's not that I feel special or that I think I'm more talented than anybody else, but when entertaining others, I thrive. It's, they say do what you love. I love engaging with others, either literally face-to-face or figuratively through some kind of media, and engaging in ideas and being cute and respectable and poke fun and what I'm doing now. Why am I self-referencing myself so much right here? Senior citizen moment. I totally lost my trajectory. Oh, the long-term trajectory of Trumptopia. This little, theoretical, what's that term for when you write, when, what do we call stories like 84 and 1984, rather? Because that's actually the title, is the entire complete set of numbers. And what do we call those? Wow. My brain is just going, sorry, no help here, no vocabulary. A cautionary tale. Boom. As soon as I stopped worrying about it, it came. A cautionary tale. My whole thing, coining the term, creating an image of it, and saying, hey, are we heading this way? Is this where we're going? It's a cautionary tale, and I intend to write, obviously it's related to some fiction, so it's a bit of a brand, too. Fiction that I've tragically have had to put way, way back on the back burner. But I'm going to come back to during this summertime real soon. But I digress. The trajectory of Trumptopia is, I think, worth sort of contemplating, because we really are on the threshold of something like that happening. If not with this gentleman, who currently holds the seat of, one of the most powerful governments in the world. Let's not be too grandiose about it and say it's in the top three. It's a nice balanced trifecta. Is always more balanced than two superpowers by themselves. We need three to kind of keep the flow of keeping each other in check flowing. I humbly suppose. So who's the third? Who are the big three? Oh, the trifecta is going to be evil too, right? There's the whole conspiracy theory that Rome, London. There's two Londons. There's City of London, and then there's the corporation of governing City of London. I'm not really sure what it's called, but there's two Londons. I was there. I hang around. I saw things. People confirmed. They confirmed this. Just like the Vatican is it's its own separate entity from Rome. Rome is a city, and while technically the Vatican is within the confines of Rome, the city, the Vatican is itself its own city. Just like Washington, D.C. It's not a part of either of the states that it straddles the border of, whichever side it's fully on. It's on one side and then kind of bridges over to the other in terms of suburbia. But it's its own district. It's the District of Columbia. How many patriotic Chinese flag waving, made in China, American flag waving, made in China fireworks loving, probably made in China Bible thumping, well, not yet, I guess. Americans really love, that's one of the places where Americans really love the American guns be made in America. But I wonder how soon will be, the Bible thumping, gun loving guys will be not realizing they're toting around Chinese made guns. Right? That we're not far from that if it isn't already happening. Or just won't give a shit. Because guns are real particular. People really nerd out on guns, and they want to know everything about it. So it'd be less likely. Like flags, whatever, it's America. It's a symbol of America. Who cares if it was made in China? I guess, is the attitude for those who are cognizant. How many of us realize what's really going on? Very few. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what's really going on. But I'm presenting in this whole cloud of projects a sort of meta-thesis that goes beyond needing to know what's actually going on. Because I see the pattern of what's going on. I don't need to know all the nuanced details. That's just nerding out on something. I see the pattern. I think, and I'm not alone in this, make suggestions about what might actually help, instead of make things crazier. And healing is the top of the list. So cautionary tale, man. Trumptopia, where are we going with this if left unchecked? If this madness left unchecked? For example, it isn't a new thing that politicians get death threats. And I'm not endorsing that. I would never, I shall never, neither in jest nor in joke, neither on this podcast nor on Facebook, will I ever state the desire to commit bodily harm in any way, shape, or form to a public servant. I know that they're corrupt. I will call them out for being corrupt. I will call them out for being hypocrites. I will call them out for being themselves hate mongers. But I refuse to hate. I've posted this before on my social media, and I think it's an important mantra to remember. I refuse to hate. And then just insert the people that we're hating on in our culture. I refuse to hate cops. I refuse to hate Black Americans. I refuse to hate Native Americans. I refuse to hate Middle Eastern Americans. I refuse to hate Trumtopian Americans. Because they live in their own little fucking bubble, right? The whole country's Trumptopia, but the real hardcore Trump fans live in a slightly different bubble of alternate dimensions, because the ones with the hardest filters really believe that Donald J. Trump, what's his middle name again? Is it really just the letter J? Because I had forgotten, there's some middle names are hilarious. And I'd forgotten that Nixon's middle name was Milhouse. After years of loving The Simpsons, I'm suddenly realizing that it's radically changed my perspective on what their intent might have been with the Milhouse character. To know that the only other famous person in American pop culture whose name is Milhouse is the former Trump-like, crazy, paranoid, corrupt, willing to do illegal things president that seemed to be gravitating towards empirical. They used to call him the empirical president, or the president of empire, something like that. We haven't quite gotten there with the right honorable and orange Mr. Trump, but I do believe that he's showing all the signs. I'm very deeply concerned for him. I don't hate him. I refuse to hate Donald Trump, my friends. I refuse to hate my fellow Trumptopians. That's really important for me to call out right now. As we celebrate the 4th of July, one of the things that makes me sad about the 4th of July is that inevitably, somewhere in this great union of many states, there are hate crimes committed. Because in the fervor of wrapping themselves up in the flag, which is supposed to be not a cool thing, you're not supposed to do that, right? You're supposed to respect the flag, not masturbate on it. But in the act of whipping the patriotic frenzy of themselves up, people will often, Americans, well-intentioned Americans, will, under certain circumstances, lash out in patriotic hate against whatever demographic of others are kind of trending. And like I said in part one, this country has an addiction to hating groups of people that live within its own borders, that come in and are utilized for the benefit of the profiteering structures in this country, but then are pejorative. What's the word? Dang it! It is a holiday. I am driving nowhere. I should have done cannabis talk first today, because I usually only do cannabis talk at 420. I meant to have been participating in smoking some cannabis before the golden hour. Anyways, that's a whole nother subject of how American cannabis is, and what a bullshit lie we've lived under to call it un-American thing, to make it uncool in America. Cannabis and hemp were on the verge of becoming America's first big, huge empire of commodity. But those who owned interests in other commodities like oil and lumber teamed up because they saw the mutual benefit. Between the two, the cannabis plant and the hemp plant can render, in other words, they can be utilized, right? Not to turn this Trumptopia segment into a cannabis talk segment. we'll remember that for a future talk. But the cannabis plant and the hemp plant can render an amazing, miraculous list of products. And I'm not bullshitting. To prove it to you, I will look it up. I'm writing a note now. Complete list. I'm a very slow cursive writer. Complete list of hemp/cannabis products that would directly compete with industries like the oil industry and the paper industry, or rather the lumber industry. I'm saying I'm a lot. So yeah, reeling myself back in. I've got 12 minutes left. Oh, for example, here we go, full circle connection. My brain, my synapses are firing. They're just firing out of order. The Constitution of the United States of America is written on hemp. Hemp, my friends. Hemp. The sister seed to the beloved Mary Jane. My preferred name for the plant because it is a feminine goddess energy plant. All right, so more on that, more about the spiritual stuff in Cannabis Talk and Zencast. But yeah, in just terms of American history and the American trajectory, it's such a complex, glorious, beautiful thing. And forgive me, I have not meant to disrespect anybody who is officially a history nerd out there. There's a lot of you. I love and adore you. Especially those of you who are history buffs, history enthusiasts, and are nonpartisan about it. They really want to look at a clear-eyed view at our American history. And bless your hearts, those of you who are partisan about it. But that's sort of something that they want you to do. That used to be a thing that they did, which is like they used to really selectively highlight American history back when American history was much more active in the programming, the education programming of this country, and it was about creating a pro-America statist patriotism in all students. Ultimately, though, they found that the less informed people were, the less engaged in wanting to know more about American history, the average electorate, the average American schmuck was, the better they could guide them in the electoral process. That's what's going on. That's what it is. When we celebrate the 4th of July, we celebrate it without any real deep comprehension of the founding fathers' intentions, thoughts, faults, because we sort of hero worship them too. We hero worship the founding fathers. We don't really know who they were. We know who they were. We know their names, and that's about it. We know their names and some of the catchphrases, right? Because to most Americans, the founding fathers might as well be characters on The Simpsons or some other, some sitcom. You love them, you adore them. Do you really know or care about their flaws, their failures, the horrible things that they did to their slaves? Because not all, but a good number of them were slave owners. And I'm not claiming to be an expert. I'm not an American history expert. I'm the guy who's just in awe of how much history is out there that is just left to collect dust in the dark and is not openly discussed and is not part of our civic discourse. It's not part of our public discourse anymore, except for maybe sometimes when it's beneficial to proving some point or another. It gets misused a lot. History gets used in a very un-American way, in my opinion, in a very in a very Trumptopian way, let's put it that way, to mislead individuals about what's going on. And that frustrates the living shit out of me. For example, something I opened part 1 with, and it's pertinent that we contemplate it now, during this height of really absurd partisanship and obstructionism. It's really cute and funny when the leader of the GOP calls the Democrats obstructionists, when they really kind of aren't. I mean, I expected them to maybe go full bore, and it would have been well within their rights, because that's the game. I don't want to over romanticize politics. I'm like I said, I'm anti-ism. What I am not doing is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. If we achieve the anarchists' goal, how will we organize life and the needs of the society that lives in our government-free place? Volunteerism? Cool. Awesome. Won't that ultimately sort of evolve or devolve into politics? Because here's the thing I think we're ignoring. Everybody who's revolutionarily minded or resistance minded or change minded, and anybody who's anti-government, because there's a lot of anti-government sentiment on the right as well as on the left and in the middle, in the non-participatory. That's what the whole non-voting movement is, right? Respect. I'll tip the hat to you guys. You've been a strong, steady movement, and you sure as heck like to school statists on statism. But the ultimate thing is we're going to have to come full circle, because no matter what we do to transcend, I would vote for transcending the political corruption as opposed to punishing or judging or killing everybody. Like I'm saying, I would never, ever, ever, I will never, and I won't endorse or support anyone that carelessly threatens bodily harm or even the life of politicians or leaders of other countries or of other places or of other cultures or of other groups, because that doesn't solve the problem ever. And ultimately, Donald Trump et al., everybody, is still just another fucking human being. And if history shows us anything, it's that killing somebody to make your point or to be right ultimately just pisses someone else off enough to end up in high odds that they're going to kill someone in retaliation. And it's not an accident that patriotism for most countries is eminently and inextricably wound up in the notion of defense and revenge. Retaliation, which in a country which sometimes, like 1/3 of the time, 2/3 of the time, considers itself a Christian nation, those two things make no fucking sense. Especially retribution, revenge. I know I ding this bell a lot, but Christ was a pacifist, yo. That's why he died on the cross. In order to be able to die for our sins, which doesn't make any sense. That seems like guilt, mind control. But if he was a real person, and let's be really clear about a fun little fact that most Americans don't understand: lots and lots of people were crucified in that time and in that place. Jesus and the two people next to him were not the only ones. It was not a special event of Jesus Christian time, okay? Because it was not a Christian thing. And they weren't only killing him. They killed a lot of people that way, and it wasn't the Jews that killed him. It was the Romans. The Jews brought complaints against him to the Romans. The Jews might have been playing a game with the Romans and setting him up. But let's not get caught up in that whole can of worms, because I'm not here to call out any religious group. Another fun fact that that most statist Americans that are being seduced into the pitfall, the ego trap of becoming Trumtopians, if they aren't already, what was that fun fact? Is that the founding fathers themselves were not all Christians, and Christians and non-Christians alike, they agreed that this should not, in fact, be a Christian nation. That's a shocking thing. You tell that to a Trumptopian who's already way over there, right deep in the orange, of being Trumptopian, like just blindly following, having blind faith in Donald Trump. Okay, that means that they're not looking at his actions or his words with any kind of analytical analysis, thinking process. They're just blind-faithedly following along and believing it. And you tell them that the founding fathers were not all Christians. Some of them were atheists. I don't think there were any actual Jewish founding fathers. I dislike calling them Jews. That's really crass. And yes, I know a lot of people that I'm connected to on social media are going to want to jump down my throat about how how important the conspiracy theory about Israel and da-da-da. That's for a whole other episode, folks. I have a whole page of notes about it. I just want to stick to this particular point, and that's that the founding fathers understood. That's where we get the notion of separation of church and state. Okay, that is original to the founding fathers era and to the very beginning of the creation of this experiment in democracy, and under God and in God we trust, we're not. Okay, those were added either in the 30s or the 50s. I can't quite remember. It was either 53 or 35, something like that. Forgive me for being hazy on the number, but I am certain for a fact that they are post World War I, post World War II. Maybe not post World War II. Maybe right before World War II. Right, as part of the preparation of whipping everyone up into a frenzy for needing to go fight a war against those godless communists. But let's stop and really think about it. It's sort of my pet peeve around patriotic, statist, pro-war holidays. It's that Christ himself let the Romans nail him to a cross and die because he was a pacifist. He was a pacifist. He didn't die in order for our sins to be forgiven. That's a twisting and turning of the actual lesson. He forgave us. He forgave us for killing him. Us being the Roman Empire and the Pharisees that were the leaders of the Jewish community at the time. Or some of the leadership of the Jewish community at the time. We're very anti-Jesus. And I say us because we all have to take responsibility for that because of the way life actually works. I'm running out of time. We're going to have to transition into that subject on a Zencast or something because that's much more on the spiritual side of things. But let's reel it back to the state mentality of this is not a Christian nation. It was never intended to be a Christian nation. And if it were a Christian nation, I wouldn't have a problem with it at all if we were actually following Christ's example. America, and I'm not the first to call out America in a very blunt, direct way about failing to follow in Christ's example. I do believe that both Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert did produced wonderful statements about this in the past, and I applaud them, and I just want to add my voice to that. If we're going to call ourselves Christian nation, cool, awesome, great. Let's follow Christ's example. He loved everybody. He healed the sick for free. He fed the hungry for free. I don't know that he built any houses, but he probably could have, would have, should have did because he was a carpenter. And if he had to, he may have given a speech about building houses for free. I'm a little hazy on that. I got to double check that shit. It's been a long time since I plowed through the New Testament, but I have read it multiple times, and et cetera, et cetera. I got 1 minute and 11 seconds left, or I did when I looked up just then. Ding, 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 ding. I'm not a big numerologist, but I do like numbers like that. So I want to thank you guys for listening. I want to say stay safe. I'm going to talk about that next. So I got to make notes about what I'm going to talk about next. We're going to talk about drinking and holidays. That's going to be a Trumptopia thing. And I'm running out of time. I got 45 seconds left. Thank you so much, you guys. Tune in to my other episodes today. It's going to be a 4th of July blitz, or at least I'm going to try. I will go spend some time with family, so I might not broadcast as much as I want to do. But I'm going to do at least one or two more before it gets too late on in the afternoon. And thank you guys for your support, your kind words. And tell you all to stay safe, stay healthy, and keep broadcasting love and stuff at people. Peace out.